Hello, good morning. Good morning, Kalpesh, and good morning, everybody. Welcome to our new episode of AI Readiness for Salesforce, our podcast focused on, well, you guessed it, being ready for AI from all aspects. And today, in particular, I'm excited because the aspect that we're looking at AI readiness for is a massive industry, a global, spanning industry with one of the global thought leaders in that industry. The industry is recruitment, and my guest today is Kalpesh.
Hey, Luca, nice to meet you.
Very good to see you. Do you want to introduce yourself, Kalpesh?
Yeah, sure. So, hi, everyone. My name is Kalpesh Baxi. My background is 25 plus years and counting in the recruitment, staffing, future work, whatever you want to label it, ecosystem. I am by nature a recruiter at heart, but I also understand the power of technology. And I'm going to be one of those people that says technology won't replace recruiters. It will enable recruiters to deliver a better service for customers.
Perfect. So we are already right into it, right? So in what way do you think the recruitment industry is gearing up to face that dilemma that you just explained, right? So, or to face the criticism, the fear looming at the horizon of, AI taking their job or not taking the job, enhancing their jobs. How do you think they're getting ready?
So I think, one of the things I'd start off with, Luca, is just reminding everyone that the staffing industry, so for today, let's call recruitment and staffing interchangeably. Recruitment is a very UK term, staffing is a global term, right? So, and I know your listeners are global, so we'll use both terms interchangeably, but we'll try and stick with staffing. The staffing industry is worth almost $500 billion in revenue globally every year. It's a big industry, right?
Wow.
The USA is the number one market, then we've got Japan, UK, and Germany all making up the top four. One of the things that I've seen in my 25 plus years in this industry is the quantum changes we've been through, right? And interestingly, this change with AI now that we're seeing is just another evolution. It's not a revolution. It's an evolution of how the staffing industry is going to evolve. So there is a nervousness. Yes, will AI replace the recruitment consultants? Will AI replace the delivery people? Well, the reality is no. It can't replace everything, but there are tasks and there are elements of the role which it can replace, which is the right thing to do. And as every technology jump we have, there is always a displacement of skills. There is a displacement of elements that come into it. But for me, I think what AI offers is the ability to offer a better service and then use those recruiters, those humans that you're engaging with to do the right elements of the role.
Well, very, very interesting perspective, actually. And it sounds like it's very much aligned with what we've seen at the latest announcement from Salesforce, where they brought to the market Agentforce 2.0. It was last November. And the demo was actually centered around the Adecco use case. And it was, on the big screen, showcasing how an agent is interacting with a candidate and preparing them for the rest of the journey, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, look, and then that was a great demonstration and a great win for Salesforce, right? To get one of the biggest staffing companies in the world to go, hey, we're coming for Agent 2.0. So I think with Agentforce, if you think about any one of those agentic type solutions, what we're seeing and what Adecco is trying to demonstrate is there are some basic elements of what a recruiter normally did that the Agentforce can do. So we can to check in with someone on their availability, to check in on what rate they've got, to check their compliance documents, right? You don't need a human to do that. You actually need, you can use technology to do that, Agentforce, etc. What the human will then need to do is actually manage a relationship, to be the interface that comes in to do the final part. And I think things like Agentforce work very well when you're working in high volume transactional and very simple point and shoot type situations. So if you're recruiting drivers or nurses or educators, etc., it's pretty fundamental. They've got the qualifications, yes or no. they are available, yes or no, right? And they're in the right budget, yes or no, as a starting point. But if you can triage that using Agentforce or whatever type of product you're using, and then when you get to the shortlist for the recruiter, it's like, well, let me phone these 5 people first because they tick 3 out of 4 of the basic requirements.
Well, that's it. It's interesting. And what in your mind, how much of the value added from the staffing industry that goes into those 500 billion revenue that you mentioned, how much of that is taken on, do you think, or could be taken on, and where is then that time available and the skills available that are freed up by an agent? Where can they be redeployed?
Well, I think if you think about the staffing industry is fundamentally a sales industry, right? It's a two-sided marketplace, and unlike selling software, you have one customer, the client. When you're a recruitment professional, you have a two-sided marketplace. You have the client who's buying the services, the resources, and the candidate who is the product, but also the candidate is also a customer. So for me, where if you can get rid of some of those lower end tasks, it frees up more opportunity to either do more sales, do more engagement, spend more time with clients, manage more mandates because you can cover more mandates in the same time available. And then also, it's actually how do you keep that relationship going with those candidates that at the moment get lost. So if I think about one simple thing that, and we'll talk about Agentforce or agentic AI, whichever one we're going to go with, right? If we think about one thing it does at the moment is if you can triage when someone's available, have they got the qualifications, and then you can have the conversation with the right people and then present them to the right clients. Actually, what you then do is increase the client experience on both sides. So the candidate gets a better experience because they're more likely to get called back and they're more likely to have their expectations managed. But also your client will get a better shortlist, long list, or a solution for the problems they've got. So what will naturally happen is, and look, if I go back, and I've been around, long enough in this industry, right? I used to have hair when I came into this industry. And I'm only talking about 1997, right? Not like just after the war or anything. But when I joined and I started in recruitment, just to give you some context, Luca, the CV still came in by post. We still wrote adverts. There was no job boards, right? Not at scale anyway. It was still you wrote your adverts. They went in the publication of the journal, and then the candidates came in via the post, right? That's 1997. We're not talking prehistoric times. Today, if you said to anyone, that's what we'll do, they would look at you like you were crazy. So the speed at which we operate in now is very, very fast. And when you get that useful nugget of information or that amazing candidate, the speed you have or the time you have to react and get that person to market or get them in front of the opportunity is a lot shorter. So whereas if I go back 25 years ago, it was harder to get good information, but you had longer to react on it. Today, you have to react quicker. And what AI, agentic AI, the technology bounces, video, etc., all these new products coming through, it allows recruitment professionals to react and respond quicker.
That's interesting. The reference to 1997, it's particularly topical because if I think about it, then you just said, there's been dramatic technology enhancements that in theory could have scared you and I working in 97 because, oh my God, I'm very good at parsing CVs on paper.
Yeah.
If they're digitalizing them, I may lose my job, right? But then the reality is that since 1997, the recruitment industry, probably the staffing industry, broadly speaking, probably grew, some tenfold over
exponential. It was
or exponential.
Yeah.
So I think that fear, right? How does that?
Well, to put it into context for you, right? So, and I work for a company called S3, which is one of the big top 50 staffing companies in the world right now today. In 1997, it was still getting there. It was still a small private company, relative. But we used to have a whole team of people, right? 20, 30 people. It was called the bridging team. And the bridging team's sole task was to take the CVs that come in and basically put them on the system manually, parse them onto the system manually. And because there was no parsing technology. Fast forward today, if you said to anyone you're going to hire a team of 20 people to parse the CVs on the system, they would probably look at you and go, you're crazy, best case, or you actually don't understand business, worst case. So, but those 20 people haven't got displaced. We've then found jobs for them when we started bringing in parsing technology to say, well, actually, your skills, you now understand data or intelligence, you now understand matching. How do we get you into other roles in the business that make more sense? So I think it's, we're at a, look, we talk about juncture, and you and I have known each other for a long time now, Luca. There are crossroads, right? And every 5 years or so, we have the crossroads or the T-junction of, do we turn left or do we turn right because of the new technology landscape or the new economic landscape we're in? The reality we're in today, video is becoming more mainstream. AI is becoming more mainstream on whatever flavor of AI, conversational generation, whatever you want to call it, right? But more importantly, the cost is becoming cheaper. So if I go back 2 years ago, you and I had a conversation around this thing called AI and how expensive it was and how it wasn't accurate and how you couldn't trust it. Today, the automation deployments you can make are so cheap. Anyone can deploy an automation solution relatively cheaply today. And AI is making it easier to do some things. Now, yes, there's hallucinations and trust and quality and a whole bunch of things you need to be wary of with AI. But it's more reliable, more accurate than it was a year ago. In fact, than it was 4 months ago, because the thing with AI is it's continuously learning.
So that means that adoption curve will be even faster, right? Because, prices are going down, you just said, then automation is becoming more obvious.
Yeah.
It's becoming more mainstream. So that represents an opportunity in that sense for staffing. For staffing. How you talk to a lot of leaders in the space. How are leadership relating to these changes in technology? How are they mentally preparing themselves, preparing their organizations, and taking action on it?
So I think there's probably two elements. If I just focus for the sake of this with the staffing leaders for now, I think we can talk about the corporate leaders because there's different challenges there.
Yes.
Of how they need to deal with it. But from a staffing point of view, we're at an interesting juncture where, look, it's been 2021 and 2022 were amazing recruitment markets. Boom, everyone was growing at a rate of knots, and there was a big supply and demand. The curves weren't matching up. 2023, we saw a normalization. 2024 was a tough year overall. The market, the global industry still grew, right? And we still saw a new company come to market. But the reality is, if you look at the big companies, the numbers were a challenge, because there was a normalization. In 2024, Luca, you and I and Nick, we had this conversation around the pay. We did a PESTEL analysis when we caught up recently. Political, economic, social, legal, and technology and environmental. And in 2024, if we forget, there were 70 major elections around the world, right?
So uncertainty.
Massive uncertainty, right?
On top of everything else there.
Exactly, right? So staffing leaders today are looking at saying, okay, well, how do I make sure I deliver my numbers? How do I make sure my business is optimized from an efficiency point of view? How do I deploy the talent, my employees, to be most optimal in the right roles, doing the right tasks? And there is a real challenge around. Okay, we'll talk about automation and AI gets very confused. They're two different things, right? And I know Vincent talks about this with some of the things that you guys have been sharing recently as well. But staffing leaders today have to be very clear around, okay, what is automation and what can I automate in my business, and what is AI? You can't. And the challenge we've had is for the last 18 months, they've been used as interchangeable terms, right? But they are very different. Automation is process. AI is something very different.
It is, it's intelligence, it's insights, and it's so. In that sense, do you think mistakes are being made in across leadership or at any level of the organization?
Yeah, I think there is, and again, going back to what we're trying to achieve, right, is if you're a staffing leader today, whether you're one of the big companies, the Randstads, the Adeccos, the Robert Walters, if you're talking about more niche, or all the way through to the smaller boutique companies, everyone, if you're a recruitment leader, you have to look at your business today and go, what is the blueprint or the structure I need for tomorrow, right? So where do I, have I got the right tech stack? Have I got the right automation? Have I got the right AI being used and deployed in the right way? Am I using video or scribing tools or note takers to actually make efficiencies? Then off the back of that is, have I skilled my employees to use these AI tools properly, in terms of their day-to-day jobs? Have I got the right employees doing the right jobs? And this is a big change program that's going on, right? This is not a quick, turn it around. Again, if I just go again, I like using reference points from the past that we can probably relate to as recruitment leaders or business leaders. If you think about in the early 2000s when the internet became mainstream, right? That was a change of how we operated. We went from, even in our personal lives, right? We went from, I'm going to go to the store to go and buy my weekly groceries to, I now have this thing called Amazon. They can deliver my books, my DVDs, etc. And then, we then changed the way we consumed broadcasting. We went from this store called Blockbuster was going to be the future and amazing. Then Netflix turned up and said, "Hey, Blockbuster, do you want to buy us?" And I'm like, "Blockbuster, like, you guys aren't going to be, you're not going to be anything." Then Netflix ended up beating Blockbuster, right? So I think every journey we go through, my conversation I have with recruitment leaders is don't be scared, embrace, but also do things in the right time in the right way. You don't have to buy all technologies in one go. So if I've done this myself as I run a business and I'm like, oh, okay, video, I've got to buy video. I've got to buy a note taker. I've got to buy a new CRM. I've got to buy a new telephone system. It's like, okay, well, how do all of these things fit together to change the way I operate? And that's the point. It's like, how do you can bring new technology into try, but you have to change the way you operate in the process.
So it's interesting because it sounds like you're saying basically that for a few years now, it's all been about execution, but now the game is changing. As it's all about adaptability, and managing change, because change is dramatic, is happening at a scale that is shifting in the way that the introduction of the internet, for instance, shifted the way operations are run in a company, right?
Yeah, and it's also the data has become, we've gone from being everyone's data to now data is data-driven different decisions, data-driven outcomes. But if the data is not pure and clean at the start, you're always going to make the wrong decision, right? So these technology leaps that we're making will hopefully allow data to be clearer at the start to make more actionable insights that can make a difference.
It's a very, actually, you're introducing the concept very, very dear to anyone operating in AI of having clean data to start with, having a lot of data, and then being able to rely on those data and trust those data in order to apply AI to it, which is kind of foundational. It's a foundational element of anything working or not working in AI. So I think that applies to databases for staffing industry.
Yeah, it's databases, but it's if we start off with clean data, then it becomes relevant data. Then it becomes relevant data that's accurate. And I think AI will help make those outcomes, get those decisions quicker. And whether it's, are these candidates right for this job, whether it's, are these jobs right for us to be able to service, whether it's is there a supply and demand issue, how quickly can you make those decisions to be able to. And I think fundamentally you have to remember, Luca, we're all in a customer experience economy, right? Everyone wants an experience now, and we're very quick to go, the experience is good or bad. If we have the right data and we're using the right technology, we should be able to give a better experience. There was a really interesting article, I think it might have been Mark Benioff, that talked about delighting people. You've got to delight people more often.
Yeah, it's the centricity of the experience for the
Yeah,
customer, and it's interesting because the way it applies in a double-sided market, as you define the staffing industry, is very relevant because it's a candidate experience on the one side.
yeah,
So you said, using AI to create an experience that is enhanced for candidates, and delighting the
yeah.
customers, obviously, who are the on the other side of the equation.
And Luca, it's actually there's actually a third dimension to that two-sided marketplace, which I think if you're not in staffing, you forget, because you normally you hold one of two avatars, right? You're either a candidate or you're a client. Well, actually, for a staffing professional, the candidate can also be a client. It could be the same thing. So I could be talking to you on one day as a customer, as in a client buying my services to fill your vacancies, but then 3, 6, 9, 12, 24 months later, or even at the same time, you could be using my services to help find your new job. So it's interesting. So it's a two-sided marketplace, but with a third dimension involved.
And do you think, therefore, the ability to build that relationship
Yeah.
that endures and goes through different cycles, right, and different perspectives, because today I'm a customer, tomorrow I'm a candidate, or vice
Yeah.
versa. Do you think that's central to something that we cannot delegate to the AI, or is it something where the AI will help?
Yeah,
What's going to happen?
I think the AI will help nudge and nurture to make sure it will remind you, it will find ways to stay connected. AI can help you. Hey, look, give Luca a call because he's just posted something on LinkedIn. Flick, and then gives me a reason to speak to you and connect with you. What AI will not do is build that relationship with you, though. Unless we get to the stage where my bot talks to your bot and has a relationship and says, "Oh, now we need to get the humans involved," and that will come maybe one day, right? But for now, it's what information can I get? What can you serve up that will allow me to have a more informed conversation? And the reality is that AI, it doesn't have emotion. It can't make the decisions that humans makes. It doesn't have the ability to build that relationship element. That's where you still need the human. That human judgment is still required. Elements. What AI will help you do is find the data, find information, and actually find reasons to connect. And you can automate, right? Just for me to connect with you, going, hey, just let you know, I haven't spoken to you for a month. It just reply back yes, no, if you're still looking. AI can do that. Automation can do that. What it can't do is build that relationship to say, hey, look, trust me with your career.
That's a very good point. Very good point. Look, you just talked about, you made a leap into the future with, my bot talking to your bot, which is very interesting, somehow, scary, dystopian, possible future. So I want to take it back to the future that is right in front of us, 2025. What do you think 2025 will be about?
Good question. It depends on. We'll leave the political challenges that we're going to face out the way for now. But let's stick to staffing and the controllables.
So I think, our control. That's a good point.
Yeah. Well, so
what can we control that is ahead of us?
So I think in staffing, we are still very much around that client element of how do we win more business? How do we deliver more services? So, the industry, if tradition was about permanent or contract, we're now starting to see statement of work, retainers. We're now starting to see MSP and RPOs becoming more mainstream. So if I was a staffing leader, my key thing is about how do I impact more revenue? That's my number one objective this year. So whether that's technology, whether that's training, whether that's relationships, whether that's connectivity, whether that's, some of the work I'm doing with clients at the moment is how do we build better client strategies? The flip side being is how do we deploy all this technology that is coming our way and make the right bets? Because, we can't get away from AI is here. But, I have a nervousness, in some companies I talk to where we're letting the individual decide, do they use ChatGPT? Do they use Gemini? Do they use something else as a product? And what are the constraints around what information goes on there? Because, companies are struggling with this at the moment. They go, well, what models do we use?
Yeah.
And what information do we trust to be fed in?
So what you're saying basically is that companies shouldn't ignore, they need to take charge. It's time 2025 will be a time for them to take charge of the reality that is happening across the organization already, right? So you just said, people are using these solutions.
And look, if we come out of staffing for 1 minute, just to talk about the corporate world, and whether you want to talk about Salesforce or you want to talk about pick a Siemens, or in terms of what Siemens are doing in engineering, or what Microsoft are trying to do with Copilot or whatever. There's a whole bunch of industry, or what the latest bus company are trying to do in terms of making buses more efficient. Everyone's got their own challenges in the world at the moment, but the one fundamental coming through is, how can you use your talent more efficiently to do the tasks that add most value? And that's not a tech play, that's ongoing. The difference is it's moving very quickly at the moment. So if you're running a train company, how do you make sure your train drivers are using the technology right for efficiency, security, safety, etc.? If you're running a nuclear reactor, how do you do it with more safety, or generate more energy more cost effectively? Everyone's got those challenges.
I think you're touching a super important issue there, because we are also seeing, as you're probably alluding to, companies and maybe leadership even that are like, how do we use AI, or let's embrace AI, or they have AI programs. And you're saying, that's the wrong angle to look at things. You need to look at what you need to achieve as a company, the talent that you have, and what you can empower them with to make their job easier, to make them more productive, more effective, rather than the other way around, looking at, how do I shove this new technology and I push it, underneath, on top, to the side of my operations, and see what works.
Or in a different department, the AI department, and I know I'm talking to one company at the moment that, they are trying to build the AI department. I'm like, it doesn't make sense. So I think realistically, we are seeing a change, right? This is a transformation. It's the next wave of digital transformation. The difference between what we're seeing now is it's omni-channel, if you want to think of it that way, because there's video, there's voice, there's written, there's a whole bunch of different things, whereas traditionally it's been one or other channel. We're now able to integrate those elements together as well to get more precise information. If data is important, how do we get more data that's clean, that's accurate, that's trustworthy? How do we automate processes that actually allow the human to focus on the tasks the human adds more value to? And then the final element is, and where the UK government have been talking about this in the last couple of months around AI, and how do we use AI in our economies? Well, how do we train everyone to be more AI friendly? How can they write prompts using AI to get jobs coming through? And the way I talk about this is, I think about those Boolean search strings I got taught as a recruiter, 15, 20 years ago. This is the new world. It's like, how do you now use the modern version of Boolean to write better prompts?
That's a very good way to wrap up, I think, all the elements that are happening. And I think it's an amazing recommendation for leadership, really, to get their focus right, and kind of look at 2025 as the year of that transformation, which is under their responsibility to bring to their organizations.
I think one of the things I would say, Luca, and then I said, you and I have got the privilege of knowing each other well, right? We've been around, they're talking to each other for quite 4 years. Whenever we see big bang transformations, they fail. They don't give you long-term material impact, or they go over budget, or they take too long. So my conversation I have with, whether you're a 10-person company or a 100,000-person company, it's like, okay, what incremental change can you make to drop in change today? So yes, there are some big digital transformations going on with new systems, new ways of doing it, new business models, etc. But think about, what can you deploy that can make a 1% improvement today?
And that is probably the best way to recommend embracing change at all level, with the centrality of impact, but taking it one step at a time.
Yeah.
Anything else that you would like to add that should be a takeaway from this session? Maybe looking at specifically, our lives, and something that is impacting us as people as well as professionals in this world.
I think look, there's a lot of conversation at the moment just coming out. We talk about the reskilling economy and skills, and all of these upskill, downskill, right skill, cross skill, whatever the government wants to use or the governments want to use. We've just had Davos and the World Economic Forum, and they've done a whole bunch of research on the future of jobs that's just been updated. So I would recommend people to read the 2025 report. It's long, but you can use ChatGPT to give you an abridged version. It's okay. But the element for me is, okay, look, we know there's a skilling requirement now, right? But in many ways, AI actually levels the playing field, whereas, it allows more people to play in some of these roles that they may have been excluded, because it gives everyone the skills or tools if they embrace properly. And then the final part for me is, look, we go through these jumps in our life. And I turned 50 last year. I had this conversation with people of, if you go back 10 years ago, apparently if you turn 50, you can't add any more value to society. The evidence now is actually over 50 add more value to society because they've got the skills. They just need retraining and they need adopting to the way to come through. So we have a skill shortage in the world. We have a number of jobs that need filling. We know there's going to be 100x million new jobs created with new skills. My advice to companies today is think about how you can retain your workforce, how you can reskill them, upskill them, and then think about the skills you need to supplement and hire in.
Fantastic. Look, this was super interesting. We also touched on, the best age, being 50. And with that in mind, I thank you very much, Kalpesh, for being on our podcast, for having this conversation with me. Super interesting. I'm sure our listeners will have found it tremendously helpful and practical, and hopefully also motivating and energizing to face the challenges and the opportunities that actually AI brings in 2025 and beyond.
Yeah, look, and thank you very much for including me today as well.
Fantastic. Thank you. Bye-bye.